So this is class 7, I think, of 32. Yeah, it's got to be 7 because we start on a Tuesday. Of 32 classes on true Vipassana introspective insight into the 3 marks of existence. Last Saturday was a class on an analysis of the 4 Noble Truths by Sariputta, and it leads nicely into today's sutta by the Buddha on an analysis of the Eightfold Path, the 4th Noble Truth. Everything follows from what the Buddha awakened to, known as dependent origination. And notice there's no interdependence or interconnectedness or interbeing in that title. Dependent origination simply states, from ignorance of 4 Noble Truths through 12 observable causative conditions, all manner of stress and suffering arises. That's the focus of the Buddha's Dhamma, is resolving that ignorance. And where does ignorance reside? Not out there, it's in here, obviously. The world, we could say that the world as a general condition is ignorant, because it is of 4 Noble Truths. But obviously we're not here to enlighten the world. We're here, that would be salvation, wouldn't it be? We're here to enlighten ourselves. To what? Specifically just that. To go from ignorance of 4 Noble Truths to understanding of 4 Noble Truths. And again, those truths reside and resolve within each individual human being who takes up the path. And so this is the single path, the only path that an awakened human being taught to develop that understanding. And the reason why I emphasize that is in modern Buddhism, and even during the Buddhist time, this has been going on for 2,600 years, there has been a compulsive, almost addictive need to change what an awakened human being taught to fit our own views. And when you look at what the Buddha awakened to, that's precisely the problem. Because if our views are rooted in ignorance, we're constantly fabricating even something as direct and simple as an Eightfold Path. We're adapting it, we're fabricating it to fit our own views, which only continues ignorance. So when the Buddha awakened, just a little bit more background. When the Buddha awakened, he sat off and on in meditation, it is said, for about 2 more weeks, having this epic struggle within himself because of his understanding of the nature of human ignorance. That epic struggle was, is there a way that I can present this that won't simply be a burden to me, meaning a waste of time? Is there a way that I can present this that will pierce the veil of human ignorance? That's why he taught an Eightfold Path, for that sole purpose, to provide us the deep concentration, jhana meditation, the 8th factor of the Eightfold Path, and the other 7 factors acting as a framework and ongoing guidance to recognize and abandon our own ignorance. That's it. That's what the Buddha taught. And again, this is the only path that he taught. Now, looking at this sutta, this is something that I've taught 4 or 5 or 6 times, always on retreat. But looking at it now from that specific refined focus of where does this teaching develop within individuals? How does it resolve clinging ignorant views to impermanent phenomena resulting in ongoing stress and suffering? And I think you'll all see it. The Magga-Vibhanga Sutta is the name of this. And the name literally means analysis of suffering, but it's analysis of the Eightfold Path. And it begins with, thus have I heard. Whenever a sutta begins with those words, thus have I heard, actually change it to I have heard. We know that this is a sutta coming from Anatta from 2,600 years ago. That's how in the first Buddhist council, that's how he started all of his recounting of the Buddha's teaching, by that declarative statement. This is what I heard. And everyone at the time knew that Anatta had this word perfect memory, probably due to his deep concentration practice. Thus have I heard. He's saying, this is what I heard the Buddha say. And here these words are still here today. I think that's one of the most remarkable things in my lifetime, is that we are listening to literally the words of the Buddha translated into English from 2,600 years ago. I have heard that at one time, the Buddha was staying in Savatthi at Jita's Grove, Anatta Pandika's monastery. There he addressed those assembled. Friends, I will now give you a detailed analysis of the Noble Eightfold Path. Listen mindfully. This is the Noble Eightfold Path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation. Again, obviously these are translated words, but the use of the word right implies wrong, doesn't it? And that's intended. You could use appropriate or inappropriate, skillful or unskillful, but with our Western way of thinking, right and wrong, this really gets to the heart of the matter. And it also implies that there's a counter to the Eightfold Path, or a contradiction. And those contradictions, that counter would be continued wrong view and wrong intention, continuing to engage in wrong speech, wrong action, and wrong livelihood, continuing to put in wrong effort, and continuing with wrong mindfulness and wrong meditation. Looking at it that way, the Eightfold Path points directly to what we should be doing, what a skillful disciple will develop. That's what the Buddha is teaching here. And remember, he didn't teach in a vacuum. It wasn't, the Buddha didn't just miraculously emerge out of a stump of a tree and start teaching. He lived a human life. He understood the problem of human life. And he understood the problem of other people going through this process of abandoning ignorance and developing wisdom. He knew all the pitfalls. How did he know it? Not from magic, not from some mystical or esoteric teaching that a prophet gave him, through his own direct experience. That's why he taught a Dhamma that has to be experienced directly by others. It's just as he did it. And so if we're this is similar to Sariputta's analysis of the Four Noble Truths. If we're not sure what they are, all you have to do is read the sutta, because anybody can understand these words. If we're concerned about or confused about what right view is, here it is. What is right view? Knowledge with regard to stress. Knowledge with regard to the origination of stress. Knowledge with regard to the cessation of stress. And knowledge with regard to the way of practice leading to the cessation of stress. And in this, the Buddha's using the word knowledge, and the translation using the word knowledge means having a direct experience. It's just an intellectual knowledge. It's a profound understanding through our own direct experience of understanding stress, understanding the origination of stress, having the direct experience of the cessation of stress, and having the direct experience of actually developing the Eightfold Path. And what is right intention? Right intention is being mindful of the intention to recognize and abandon wrong views. Where do wrong views arise? Anybody or everyone? Pardon me?
In silence.
Yes, from what though?
Ignorance.
Hey, yes, we're getting somewhere here. Right intention is being mindful of the intention to remain free from ill will. Does anybody feel like they can't do that?
No.
Right intention is being mindful of the intention to remain harmless to all beings. Does anybody feel like you can't do that? It's too big of an order?
No.
This, friends, is right intention. Simple, isn't it? And what is right speech? Right speech is abstaining from lying, abstaining from divisive speech, abstaining from abusive speech, abstaining from gossip, and abstaining from idle chatter. Does anybody feel they can't do that? It's tough though, isn't it? But just think for a moment, if one aspect of the Buddha's Dhamma was taken to heart and practiced by everyone in the world, this one thing would end all conflict, wouldn't it? It might not lead directly to awakening. Many people, when they first start taking up the Dhamma, this is the first thing that becomes apparent to them, because it's so personal, isn't it? What I'm saying to others, if there's stress in it, if it's hurtful in any way, now I'm going to recognize it and I'll understand where it comes from. It's not because of what the other person is provoking in me. It's because of the ignorance that's provoking that response or reaction inside me. That's the reason why the Buddha teaches these middle aspects of the Eightfold Path, right speech, right action, right livelihood, are moral and ethical teachings in a sense. And this is where people start confusing this with religion, because most religions have some type of moral and ethics as their base teaching. But the Buddha taught these moral and ethical teachings for the most practical of reasons. Because if we continue to engage in the wrong aspects and hurtful speech, hurtful actions, hurtful livelihood, there's no possible way that we can develop concentration and the other remaining factors of the Eightfold Path. We'll simply be lost. We'll always be accommodating our own wrong actions and never getting down to the fact that it's our actions that show us the state of what we're holding in mind. Is that last statement clear?
And
In other words,
the reason why all these virtues, all these parts of virtue factors are stated in the negative.
yes,
Every one of them.
every one of them. The Buddha this kind of teaching is called via negativa, through the negative. But think about the brilliance of this. Even during the Buddhist time, this idea that we should all be positive and enamored with everything was common then, just as common it is today. The Buddha realized that we are ignorant, and we create these very powerful and subtle strategies to continue to ignore our own stress and suffering. We blame it on others. We blame it on a lack of attention from God. We blame it on a lack of the right teacher or the right Dharma or whatever it might be. It's always externally and fabricated to blame something other than our own ignorance. And it works wonderfully well, doesn't it? That system has worked to keep human beings in ignorance since the beginning of time.
It does go back to your original question, the lack of understanding, right view, and right intention. If you don't accept that, if you don't accept the Four Noble Truths, then the middle part is just kind of like that barometer, and you certainly won't develop mindfulness through the concentration you need.
Yes, thank you for that. The Eightfold Path is not linear, but the progression is important. That it is the beginnings of right view, followed by right intention, that allow us to now have the proper framework for looking at, just like the Buddha taught here, and what right intention is, to provide that right framework for seeing our speech and our actions, excuse me, in a way that is consistent for developing understanding. Again, it's not there to blame us or to teach us that we're evil sinners and we're lost forever. Just to put the focus where it belongs, on our own individual human behavior. The most simple and direct teachings ever given. Nothing magical or mystical. Another way of saying that is simply look at yourself. I'm going to say it again, so it's not used to. If you want to know what you want, look at what you have. Because that's what we have. Our life experience, what we're experiencing in my life right now, I'm experiencing because it's exactly what I insist on having. And if what I insist on having is continued ignorance of Four Noble Truths, I'm insisting on being stuck in the three defilements of greed, aversion, and ongoing deluded thinking. But if I take to this Dhamma, I can recognize I'm going to use the word foolishness, and there's foolishness there, the fruitlessness. There's no value in continuing that once I understand that I'm the cause of my discontent, not the world, not other people, not my lack of money or anything else, or not having the biggest house on the block, or the prettiest girlfriend, or the prettiest boyfriend, or the best handicap, or anything else, or being the most magnificent meditation teacher. All of that's fabricated. What do I need to do? What do I need to be happy? I need to resolve my own ignorance of Four Noble Truths, of the way things are. Abstaining from idle chat. I just want to touch on that because the right speech also, and maybe most significantly, refers to the speech that we engage with ourselves. And that idle chatter is really our ongoing distraction between our ears of what's really occurring. That's why we need a concentration practice as a foundation for piercing that veil of ignorance, to interrupt that ongoing idle chatter within our minds. This, friends, is right speech. And what is right action? Abstaining from taking life, abstaining from taking what is not freely given, abstaining from sexual misconduct. This, friends, is right action. These instructions are in a directly practical way, meaning if I go to a store, I don't take a loaf of bread because it's not freely given. But on a much more subtle level, we can look at how we manipulate other people through fear or pity or anger, all kinds of things. That's taking what's not freely given, isn't it? Even if we're doing it in a subtly peaceful way, if we're doing it to manipulate someone else, we're taking something from that person, aren't we? I know this is very subtle and it may seem almost insignificant, but that's the most significant thing of the Dhamma. Not expecting anything that's not given freely and not taking anything that's not given freely, including within the Dhamma practice. But the Dhamma practice, as the Buddha says, is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. We don't have to take anything. The point I'm making, we don't have to grasp after the Dhamma. All we have to do is make ourselves mindfully present, develop the Eightfold Path, and the Dhamma comes to us. It develops within us. Everybody has experienced that, haven't you? A lot of it is just merely showing up for the Dhamma with the right framework. And what is right livelihood? Right livelihood abandons dishonest livelihood. Right livelihood is honest livelihood. This, friends, is right livelihood. It almost sounds redundant, and why would the Buddha make a point of this after he kind of covered this in right speech and right action? And this confused me for a while until I realized, in reading more of the suttas and then kind of looking out in the world, that the Buddha saw that people that were otherwise sincere in their right speech and right action would take liberties with that when it was time to put food on the table for the kids. Kind of understandable, isn't it? But getting to the subtle aspects of right speech and right action, that's wrong action, isn't it? In any way. And in that way, it will block someone from developing the Dhamma. It's not a sevenfold path, it's an eightfold path. I'll continue. I could go on and on about that, but that's something that we tend to do as human beings, don't we? That we might not be doing things that are terribly egregious in the world, terribly hurtful towards others, and even though we kind of know that we shouldn't be acting in a certain way, as long as we don't get caught, we're okay. But there's no free rides. That's something else that the Buddha recognized. There's no free rides.
Back into your ignorance again.
It locks you into it. And again, it's not about hiding something from the world or protecting, and this is why we do it, because we have an image of ourselves. There's so many incredible examples of this today, not just one person, hundreds of them out there, that we hope to project this perfect image and hope that no one recognizes that there's something imperfect underneath all that. But that's all a fabricated view, isn't it? We can't be perfect and we can't be imperfect. All we can be is 6 properties and live a human life. And what is right effort? Right effort is effort developing the skillful desire and ongoing persistence to avoid unskillful qualities that are not present. What unskillful qualities are we trying to not encourage? In a very practical way, it's just right speech and right action and right livelihood. But then as we broaden that, we understand that it is the Dhamma, that the Eightfold Path in its entirety, that develops this. Right effort is effort developing a skillful desire and ongoing persistence to abandon unskillful qualities that are present. Again, how do we recognize these unskillful qualities? The framework of the Eightfold Path and jhana meditation. Right effort is effort developing the skillful desire and ongoing persistence to abandon unskillful qualities that are present. Right effort is effort developing the skillful desire and ongoing persistence to establish skillful qualities that are not yet present. What are these skillful qualities? Anyone? What are the skillful qualities that we hope to develop that are not now present? Right view. I'm sorry, go ahead. That's it. These are the skillful qualities. You could even look at the Dhamma this way as 8 skills to develop, because that's just what they are. And beginning with the skill of proper meditation. I'm sorry, Ron.
No, I was just if you talk about right effort, you're trying to develop the sevenfold path. No.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're playing with words.
Yeah, I'm playing.
Yeah, an aspect of the Eightfold Path is this sixth factor. And it just reminds us of what to do. The Buddhist this is the effort that's necessary to develop the Dhamma. Again, he didn't even leave this out. This is what we do.
It's also right effort. Keep the goal. Keep the right view in as the focus.
Yeah.
Because you can have right effort. I'm going to do it every week, and I'm going to do it twice a day. But if it's not pointing toward creating concentration to see better the 3 marks, then you're off base. So there's right effort is not just the effort of doing it, but the point of it all.
Yes, the incorporating right view in right effort. That's what guides us. And right view, understanding stress, understanding the origination of stress, understanding the cessation of stress, and understanding the path to the cessation of stress. And then the rest of this follows. This is how we develop that right view. And this aspect of it is engaging in right effort. Persistence. Right effort is effort developing the skillful desire and ongoing persistence to end confusion and increase the full development of skillful qualities that are present. And this is why, you hear me say this often, and there's many suttas, where the Buddha teaches it's just as important to recognize what is developing skillfully as it is to recognize what you are abandoning or what you should be abandoning. That's both aspects of the Dhamma, isn't it? This, friends, is right effort. And what is right mindfulness? Right mindfulness is remaining mindful of the body, free of distraction, ardent, alert, and mindful of abandoning greed and reaction to worldly events. Where is that mentioned in other important suttas? 4 Foundations of Mindfulness. It relates directly to that. This is the Buddha's teaching on refined mindfulness. And so what is that? It relates directly to meditation practice, but also off our cushion too. But in meditation, that's exactly how we begin our practice. Becoming mindful of the breath in the body, ardent, alert in that moment is the beginning of refined mindfulness and deep concentration, an aspect of the Eightfold Path. Abandoning greed and reaction to worldly events. Right mindfulness is remaining mindful of feelings arising and passing away, free of distraction, ardent, alert, and mindful of abandoning greed and reaction to worldly events. Again, and as it relates to our meditation practice, it's just that. In our meditation practice, we deepen our concentration by recognizing when we're caught up in our thoughts, an aspect of greed, craving after and clinging to our fabricated thoughts, as opposed to deepening our concentration. That's what the Buddha means in these words, in reference to the world. It's clinging to worldly phenomena that is the distraction. But as we remain resolute, ardent, and alert, and mindful of our breath in the body, all of that falls away, at least for the moment. And as we deepen our concentration, we're able to maintain that off our cushions and maintain this right effort and right mindfulness. Right mindfulness is remaining mindful of mental qualities arising and passing away, free of distraction, ardent, alert, and mindful of abandoning greed and reaction to worldly events. It simply means that we don't have this strong grip on our thoughts or on our views. We're able to simply be present with them, with our thoughts, as they arise and pass away and come back to the sensation of breathing. Right? Again, it's right back to the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Right mindfulness is remaining mindful of the quality of mind arising and passing away, free of distraction, ardent, alert, and mindful of abandoning greed and reaction to worldly events. That last instruction before we end meditation is notice the quality of mind. Be at peace with your mind. That's direct instruction on the 4th foundation of mindfulness, which is often written as you're being mindful of mind, but which sounds a little confused, what the Buddha is teaching is to simply be mindful of the present quality of mind, no matter what that quality of mind is. And you've often heard me say, using this phrase, to be at peace with a less than peaceful mind state. That's the fourth foundation of mindfulness. No matter what we find, no matter how we find our mind in the present moment, we can be free of the need for our mind to be any different than it is. And why is that the most sensible thing we can learn? Because in the present moment, my mind can't be any different than it is, can it? I've created it. I'm responsible for it. But what I can learn is an eightfold path, change the way that I look at the world through right view. And then no matter what occurs, I can maintain a common peaceful mind. I can maintain that common peaceful mind as the fourth foundation of my own mindfulness. Is that clear, that last part? I'm not developing mindfulness for you or anybody else. I can't, can I? But what I can do is stop contributing my lack of mindfulness to the world and to my own experience in the world. It's up to me through an eightfold path. This, friends, is right mindfulness. And what is right meditation? You compare this to a lot of stuff that's out there. And again, a lot of stuff what's out there isn't bad or wrong. It's just not what the Buddha taught. And that's the whole point of this. And what is right meditation? For one who has developed right meditation, their concentration increases and they withdraw from the need for sensual stimulation. Simple and direct, an aspect of jhana. You'll remember when we went through those, I think 7 or 8.
Finding seclusion. Is that this what that points to, or is it
A big part of it? And Lorna pointed this out a while ago. An important seclusion is first established on our cushions. But with a well-concentrated mind supporting the refined mindfulness of the Eightfold Path, we can take that seclusion out in the world. And we can be in the world, but yet still be maintaining that seclusion. Another word for that was being in the world, but not entangled in the world. That's the profound teaching on seclusion. It's not just leaving the world behind for 30 minutes or so for our meditation. It's being able to take that off our cushion and remain well secluded.
right? But in right meditation, it is just that, find seclusion.
It's just that. And if you think about the word, there is obviously physical seclusion to where there should be, to a meditation practice. In other words, walking along the towpath, being mindful of your walking is not a concentration practice. You might call it meditation. There's no seclusion there. There's no opportunity for the body to not be stimulated when you're walking or doing anything else. Meditation is meant to be sitting and secluded. But again, we take that seclusion that we develop on our cushion, off our cushion, and out into the world. For one who has developed right meditation, their concentration increases and they withdraw from unskillful mental qualities. You remember that, I'm going to say this before, you remember the talks on jhana, and we're going to do 3 or 4 suttas on jhana in this structured study. These 4 levels of jhana are simply deepening levels of concentration that everybody experiences. And the result of that is withdrawing from unskillful mental qualities, withdrawing from directed thought, et cetera, and evaluation, and coming into these deeper levels of jhana. For one who has developed right meditation, their concentration increases, and they enter or remain in the first jhana. The first level of meditative absorption, which is joyful engagement and pleasure in the Dhamma, born from withdrawal and accompanied by directed thought and mindful evaluation. It's a lot of words, but what the Buddha is simply describing is what we all experience when we sit and meditate. We sit down, we find seclusion, we sit down, and we become mindful of our breath and our body. In that first level of jhana, it is expected that we'll be directing our thoughts. And this is something that is often misunderstood. It simply means that my thoughts are directed away from being distracted and back to my breath. It's an intentional act to begin our meditation practice. Everybody has to do it. It's not something, having the ability to do that is not something that we've acquired. It's not a badge of honor. It's simply meditation practice. And evaluation, which is part of that, is judging whether I'm doing this right or wrong, or, these thoughts that I'm having are bad, whatever that is. Anytime we're doing evaluation, placing value judgments on our meditation practice, we're still in that first jhana. It's fine. It's to be recognized that's what we're doing, but to understand that there's deeper levels of jhana to develop. For one who has developed right meditation, their concentration increases and their directed thoughts and mindful evaluation quiets. They enter and remain in the second jhana. So again, the Buddha is giving simple and direct instructions on how to understand that our jhana practice is actually developing, because we can refer to this and say, yes, I've done this. I've had this experience. And has everybody had this experience entering into the second jhana, even if it's just for a moment or two?
Yeah.
The reason why I'm asking the question and making the point is that's right meditation. You're doing it correctly. And it's important that you acknowledge that yourself. Give yourself the credit for actually doing this correctly. It's important. The second level of meditative absorption, the second jhana, which is joyful engagement and pleasure born of deepening concentration, free from directed thought and mindful evaluation, and confident within. So we've entered this second jhana, our meditation has increased. And we're taking the simple pleasure of concentration. And I would bet that every one of you has felt that, haven't you? Just the pure pleasure of having a well-concentrated mind, even if it's just for a few moments, right?
Yes.
True statement. Yeah, this is meditation. And again, it's important to recognize that because it helps reinforce our practice. For one who has developed right meditation, their concentration increases and their joyful engagement fades. Uh-oh, what happens? Equanimity arises with mindfulness of pleasure in a mind united with the body. They enter the third jhana. The wise know this as equanimous and mindful, a pleasant abiding. Everybody's experienced that? There's nothing extraordinary about any of this, is there? It's just ordinary Dhamma practice. For one who has developed right meditation, their concentration increases, their mind rests in equanimity. Excuse me. Neither pleasure nor pain have a footing, meaning they're simply not present. They enter and remain in the fourth jhana. Their mindfulness and equanimity is pure, free of wrong views rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. This, monks, is right meditation. Has everyone experienced that level of equanimity? I know you have, but I'm not going to argue with it. Equanimity, again, it could be just for a few brief moments, but you're no longer even sensitive to pleasure. You're obviously not sensitive to pain, meaning you're not distracted towards that. Your mind is simply at rest. It's at peace. That's what equanimity means. I'll ask you again, have you experienced that?
Yes.
I know you haven't. No, who said no?
I haven't.
And again, it's not and by asking the question, I'm not implying that you should.
No, I know.
What's taking you so long? But just to recognize that this is an aspect of ordinary jhana practice. And I can guarantee if you keep doing it, you're going to experience that. There's nothing that is beyond us as ordinary human beings in developing this practice. And we don't need any outside agency to help us with it. In fact, an outside agency can help us with it. It's up to us. Ahead, Pasiko, come and see for yourself. Oh, I forgot something, Kevin. That golf ball you gave me, but I'm going to bring it. I want to use it as a prop one of these days. This is what the Buddha declared. Those gathered were gratified and delighted at his words. Is anyone confused at all about what the Eightfold Path is now? Does anyone feel that they can't integrate this as their Dhamma practice? Lorna?
I'm confused about the expression mindful evaluation. I drive myself nuts on that. I don't know how to evaluate that really without me being involved in it. I can't just. driving nuts.
You can, the reason why the Buddha taught these 4 levels of meditative absorption is not to lead us along, but simply to describe what occurs during meditation practice. So there is no need to evaluate your meditation practice. As concentration increases, the need to evaluate what's occurring falls away. There's no direct action except being mindful of the breath in the body. And when we find that we're not, when we're caught up in our thoughts, when we're caught up in directed thought and evaluation, we simply come back to the sensation of breathing. If we take that to the next step where self-referential ego personality wants to go, because it continues distraction, doesn't it? It continues ignorance, then we're lost. And again, that's the importance of these teachings on jhana. When I first heard this, in fact, quite a few times I heard the word jhana, but it was always presented as this is something for super experienced meditators that have been meditating for 6,000 lifetimes and have better teachers than I might have. And it's simply just this. It's simply, this is what we experience. So now when you find yourself evaluating, placing a value judgment on your meditation, there's nothing to do except come back to the sensation of breathing. Because anytime you feed that, you're increasing its hold on you. So it's easy to say, I know how easy it is for me to say this is what you do, but I also know the struggle in actually doing it. What's the solution? Continue.
I know, but the meditation practice that you described as the 8th factor of the Eightfold Path is like the precursor to how we approach life and to be mindful of our mind throughout life.
Yes.
And to getting back to that phrase of evaluate, to do that, you evaluate your own mind. And that drives me nuts.
Is the evaluation just saying this is going well, this is not going well?
Oh, I see. Now I see where you're going. In order to recognize these different levels of jhana, there's a value judgment implicit in that.
Well, not necessarily. Just going about how is my mind? Am I going down the deep cabin here, or am I looking at life realistically, or that the questioning of evaluation.
Yes, we shouldn't be evaluating it. In the Dhamma, we don't evaluate. We develop right view as a way of seeing things. So, excuse me. From the point of view of awakened right view, we understand stress. An aspect of stress is this need to constantly place a value judgment on something.
Yeah.
When we understand the nature of stress, we understand the fruitlessness of doing that. And as we deepen our understanding, it simply falls away. It's a direct consequence, if you will, of continued Dhamma practice.
Because you can't force it.
Yeah, because if you force it, there has to be an underlying value judgment to force you to do it in the first place.
Get round and round and round.
The Nagara Sutta. I see, Mike. Give me 1 second. Thank you. And so the solution to overanalyzing or over-evaluating whatever's occurring, what is the solution to that?
Come back to your breath.
Come back to your breath. Stopping it. That is the direct intentional act of interrupting ongoing thinking that manifests at times as I like this, I don't like that, I'm doing this right, I'm not doing it right, I like that person, I don't like that person. From awakened right view, there is none of that, because we understand the nature of what's arising in front of us. Michael.
And it's not mine.
And it's not mine. Yeah, even that thought of why am I doing this again, that's not you, is it? Seems like it is, because you're so close to it. Michael.
So essentially, you just basically let it take its own path.
Let it, what are your...
The meditation process will take its own path without self-evaluation. The self-evaluation will hinder or cause you to stunt it, so to say.
Yes, it will. And it's only to be recognized as an aspect of ever deepening concentration. In other words, so the solution to it is to continue with practice. As our concentration, again, this is something that it's rather subtle, because meditation is the big thing we do in Buddhism, isn't it? And it's very easy to, even though we understand the Eightfold Path, to expect that eighth factor of the Eightfold Path to give us everything. And it doesn't. Meditation is solely for the purpose of deepening concentration so that we can hold in mind, refined mindfulness, all 8 factors of the Eightfold Path, when it's appropriate to apply them, as our life experience. So as we deepen our concentration, we are able to more fully support the emerging right view that we're developing within this practice. And it is through that right view, and again, continued through the entire Eightfold Path, including right effort, that we're able to recognize the fruitlessness of evaluating anything except our Dhamma practice. And so we know if we're still stuck in this conditioned way, it simply means there's more to do, that's all. If we start judging that if we get caught up in doubt, one of the hindrances, judging ourselves or the practice harshly, it's going to be very difficult to continue. That's why the Buddha taught that as one of the hindrances. I just want to, is this helpful, Lorna?
It would be helpful if it wasn't in there to start with, and then I wasn't thinking about it. That would be helpful.
So yeah, okay, well.
I mean, he's saying, but question or evaluate it, whatever, or, and if it wasn't written in there, I wouldn't be evaluating. But
Well, we'll take it out.
You would do that.
We'll take it out.
Don't blame the Dhamma on that.
He might not force his mind down there, but this is his expression. And when I go down that route, that you just go around in circles, driving yourself crazy with it.
Can you, when you find yourself evaluating things that way, can you remind yourself that this is not me, this is not mine? Can you, again, this is where the whole point of the focus is. It's not because the Buddha said this or somebody wrote it down or I'm teaching it. The struggle is I'm going to put this as brutally as I can. The struggle is because you'd rather it be different than it is. Rather than recognize it, it's simple and gentle instruction on what to do when you find yourself evaluating things.
Yeah, I think I look for more instruction, more clarity in the Buddha Dhamma, and that's what actually I'm looking for. I'm looking for an answer, not to be right or not to be right or not to be wrong, but for structure. That's actually what I'm doing,
and so the structure doesn't hang on that one line. The structure is, in other words, in order to develop your understanding past that point, the structure is there. It's continued development of the Eightfold Path. And I would say that when you're hung up on, this is not just for Lorna, when you're hung up on one aspect of the teaching, taking refuge in the Dhamma means that's okay, and continuing with your practice, because I'm going to use an example that I know is true for you. When you first heard dependent origination, the first 47 times you heard me say it, it was really aggravating and frustrating for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because, and everybody does this, it's not because you were grasping after understanding it,
yes.
rather than let it come to you.
Yeah.
This is the same way.
Yes, it is.
No, resolve that issue.
That's how my mind is.
Well, yeah, but that's how your mind is, right? Let's say it that way. This is how my mind is right now.
This is how my mind is right now.
Do you expect it to be this way tomorrow? We don't know. It's speculation.
Well, it doesn't
It may not be.
It may not be.
And if it is,
It is.
this is not me, this is not mine. And you continue with your practice. I mean, we're really, this might sound almost insignificant, but this is Dhamma practice. When we start finding things that we might not be able to do, or they're just a little bit too confusing, what's that? We want to throw the baby out with it. I'm not saying you're doing this, but we let it reflect on the entire Dhamma rather than realize it. Again, this is why it's so important. That's why the instructions on jhana are so important. So we recognize this is, even despite my misgivings about this one point, it's really working. And you would have to say that, wouldn't you? Especially when you're sitting in front of me. Julia had her hand up.
No, I was just saying that, I was thinking, you're saying that this applies in meditation when you have thought. You start having thoughts. You just, as soon as you realize, you say, I have thoughts. Go back to breathing.
Yeah.
And the same thing in life when you see yourself like in a flurry of, should I do this and should I do that or blah, blah, blah. And if you stop for a brief moment, you could say, these things are not, these things are distracting. These things are grasping. These things are not me. And then you go back again. You could actually go back to your breath again.
Yep.
Take a brief moment, and then you can continue navigating through life. I actually find that I do that now a lot.
Wow.
A lot more. Yeah. Especially since learning the Eightfold Path, I find myself constantly this is almost like a check system. I look at it as, and it makes you check yourself always. So,
but it's even more.
It's exactly that. Thank you, Julia. I mean, that's Dhamma practice. When I find that I'm going to use an extreme phrase, when I find that I've lost my mind and I'm caught up in the world and it's swirling around me, I've lost my footing, I'm back in my body. It's just that way.
And that's it.
And it's not, there's nothing magical about it. It's a completely human response. We just never learned it, or we forgot about it. You cannot be in the past or in the future. You can't be out of your body when you do this mindfully. You're back home. And in that moment, you're not evaluating anything. Now I might be back into it. But what do I do? What have I learned? Just what Julia said. It doesn't matter if I have to continually do it. It doesn't mean that I can't do it or the Dhamma doesn't work. In fact, the proof that it is working is proof that it does work. I know you.
Yeah, I mean, just in that, the Eightfold Path is the structure. And if we look at it sequentially, the seventh factor is right mindfulness. And what is right mindfulness? Right mindfulness is remaining mindful of the body free of distraction. So if we're moving away from what's occurring, which is the breath in the body, then we're moving into thought, thinking, evaluation, story, whatever. So ardent, alert, and mindful of abandoning greed and to reaction to worldly events. Right mindfulness is remaining mindful of feelings arising and passing away, free of distraction. Ardent, alert, mindful of abandoning greed and reaction to worldly events. Right mindfulness is remaining mindful of mental qualities arising and passing away, free of distraction. Ardent, alert, and mindful of abandoning greed and reaction to worldly events. So the Eightfold Path is the structure. If we look at it sequentially, right mindfulness sets up right meditation because we're mindful of the body free of distraction. Ardent, alert, and mindful. So we're not moving away from what's occurring into evaluation, thinking.
Thank you. And mindful of the body literally means a mind in the body.
Yeah.
It's not that I need to be thinking about my body.
Right.
It means that I've united my mind and my body. I'm ardent, alert, and mindful. That's what it means. I've finally united my mind and my body. And in that way, there's nothing else to be grasping after. not especially, as our understanding of reality increases, we naturally stop grasping after. And an aspect of greed, the subtle aspect of greed, is wanting even my own thoughts to be different than they are. But isn't that greed? Isn't that craving? Isn't that desire? And it's all rooted in what? Ignorance of Four Noble Truths. Picture it this way. A mind that wants nothing, including accepting itself in such a radical way that it needs nothing, is a mind at peace. And why wouldn't each and every human being who understands that and understands the way to develop it not want to do it? But of course, we have to understand what we're doing. And that's what this sutta is about. And that's what this structured study is about. This is about resolving all of these wrong views that grew from ignorance of Four Noble Truths, that we've fabricated our very own existence on this. And we don't have to do that anymore. Right here, right now, a mind united in its body, free of directed thought and evaluation, and a few other things, is resting in equanimity, no matter what occurs. And this is not theory. This is not an abstraction. This is not something we hope for or pray for. This is something we do for ourselves. And again, I keep asking that question about, are you having these experiences? I want to know that I'm teaching in an effective way and not wasting everybody's time. And I think I do that. But even more important is that you understand that you're not wasting your time, that you're developing this as it should be, because that's what keeps us going. If we think it's just a fun Tuesday night with some wonderful folks, listen to a crazy old bald guy, you're probably not going to continue that too long. Mike, you had a hand up?
Yes. So the more we internalize the Eightfold Path and come to live by it, and we live by it in the present, right?
Yes.
The absolute present moment. And the meaning of that is basically we have to be aware and develop that awareness in the present moment, which is no small task, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Everything that comes our way, we have to adhere to the Eightfold Path. That once we become, which obviously it's a path. It doesn't happen overnight. It's something that has to be cultivated and becomes second nature to us. It has to become who we are, nature.
Yes.
Okay. Once we become adept at that, okay, and it becomes our nature, okay, and the essence of our being, our natural state of meditation will also deepen to the higher levels of concentration.
Yes, it's symbiotic in that way. In other words, concentration practice supports the other 7 factors of the Eightfold Path. The other 7 factors of the Eightfold Path supports deepening concentration. So it's very good insight that you see it that way.
And because of this, because of how we evolve with, our being evolves with and being in sync with the Eightfold Path,
Mm-hmm.
It frees our mind from suffering. Okay, again, go back to Four Noble Truths, right? It frees our mind, and such so when we sit down to meditate, that suffering or clinging and grasping does not interfere with our meditative practice.
Yes.
Yes.
But we need to be careful there, because it's the point of meditation is not so for those 30 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it is, that we're using that as an escape from our own suffering, because that's no longer a concentration practice. Now, I tend to not use and I'm not trying to play name games or word games with you. I don't tend to use the present moment, because that's kind of developed its own type of religious movement. Really what it is to be mindfully present of my life as my life unfolds.
Yes.
You could say it's the same thing. Now, I ask you a question. What is the quality of mind that's required to be present with my life as my life unfolds?
The quality of mind.
Mhm.
I think you have to be aware of all and everything that thoughts that are processed, anything that the mind sets forth, and we have to again choose mindfulness and right action and be guided by that every moment of every moment.
Mhm. I didn't mean to put you on the spot,
No,
Michael.
and so
The-
so that just let me just
Please.
doing that, okay? That takes it's a very difficult state of mind to exist in the present, to be present, okay? But if we do that, okay, and we apply that to everything that filters through our mind,
Mhm.
right? That acute awareness will keep us here in the present, and it will not let us go backwards or forward, because our powers of concentration will be here where it's needed in the present.
That's what I was getting at. What keeps us in my life as my life unfolds? Concentration. That's why the Buddha taught that single meditation method. It cannot be done without it. And with a well-concentrated mind, we can develop the rest of this Eightfold Path that we learned about tonight and other times, and eliminate anything that would distract us from what's occurring. But we also have to we can get caught up, especially in early practice, that to overemphasize the present moment, that I must always be in here. It's a natural development of integrating the Eightfold Path. In other words, a person who has developed the Eightfold Path is simply well concentrated and mindfully present with life as life unfolds. There's no, you bring up such a good point, thank you. There's no abstraction about that type of life. We're not imagining it or fabricating it in any way. It's simply living a life. There's no magic about it.
And the distraction of past and present is gone.
Yeah, and isn't that, again, when you think a little bit about that, isn't that the most reasonable teaching any human being? Don't be, the quote is, it's not really true. Don't get, remember what it is. Don't be stuck in the past, keep your head out of the future, whatever that might be. But that's just good advice for any human being, isn't it? But we can't do it because we are distracted by our own craving for and clinging to fabricated views. The Eightfold Path resolves that. There cannot be, remember where the Buddha talks about his own awakening, and he said, there's nothing left within me, meaning the Buddha's talking about himself, to provoke another moment rooted in ignorance. We hold on to these things that provoke us out of the present moment. But we can also let go of them. They're all of our own creation. Everything, every measure of discontent and confusion, greed, aversion, and deluded thinking in our minds is because we put it there, whether it's inadvertently or not. We put it there. The great news about that, or the great power in that, is because we put it there, because we filled our bucket up with all kinds of nonsense.
And that's where the peace will come from. That's where the peace comes from.
Yes, yeah, from actually developing the path. When the Buddha described the quality of mind of an awakened human being, he did it in completely unambiguous terms. No mysticism, no magic, no esoterica, nothing. He said an awakened human being's mind is calm. And we all know we can develop that. And he described right view, as we learned tonight. Right view understands stress. But really, what you could take that a little further. I'd say right view understands my contributions to my stress, because that's really what we're getting at. That's where it resolves in Anatta. So we had a great discussion, but I want to give you all a chance to talk. So we'll go around the room. Matt.
Good to see you, John. Good to see everybody. Very clear teaching. Thank you.
Lorna.
Thank you. I've said enough. Thank you.
No, you haven't, but I'm glad you're here. Hello, Kevin.
John, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. Who was that? It was Isabella when I was
Yeah,
asked.
I don't think I have anything to add. Thank you.
Glad you're here. Good evening, Ron.
The great run through of the Eightfold Path. And again, it's the repetition that just brings just the refinements in it, a little more understanding. And we went through the whole thing again, and every point of it just brightened up a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you. You've really learned an awful lot. I remember, I think it was the second or third retreat that you were telling me how difficult it was to even understand the Eightfold Path, just the words of it.
Yeah.
And this is, and I'm just saying that just because this is how it is. You know, this is something completely new to most of us. And human beings learn this way. So we first learn it intellectually, and then something like this that has to be experienced. If we're fortunate enough, we do experience it. That's what the Buddha means by knowledge. Let me go to those folks online, and I'll start with, hello, Mary, you did make it. How are you, Mary? She just left. Scared her off. Hello, Helen. How are you, Helen? Geez, I wonder if they're here. Helen, do you hear me? Yeah, maybe she left. All right. How are you, Jane?
I'm here.
Somebody's here. I was wondering if Helen and Mary just didn't hear me, but I guess they do. How are you, Jane? What did you think of tonight's sutta?
I have a very simplistic view of my Dhamma practice. I mean, I'm only a little over a year into it, and I just look at where I was and where my mind is now, a year later, and so much more peace, you know, and calm. And to be honest, I don't really think of all the different aspects and the words and all. I mean, I understand them as you're saying them, but when I'm out there in the world, you know, I'm just living, and I notice a big difference. And it's not that I don't have pitfalls that Matt helps me get over sometimes, but it's the difference is, you know, it's a significant difference, even in a year's time. So that's all I say.
Thank you, Jane. It was just a year ago that you went on your first retreat, wasn't it?
Right.
Wow. Yeah, really. You've made great progress. So I'm glad you joined us tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening, David.
I'm good, thank you.
I'm glad you're here. Hello, Tim.
Good evening. I have nothing to add.
I'm glad you're here. Good evening, Kate. How are you? I'm good, thanks. I'm glad you're here. Hello, Michael.
With every class. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you for being here. Hello, Julia.
Hi, John. Thank you for everything and noble silence tonight.
Thank you. Hello, Liz.
Hello. It's always so interesting every time you hear it repeated and you look how it folds back and forth, and I just always appreciate the reminders. So thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Bonnie.
Hello, John. Yeah, I'm really grateful for the Eightfold Path for laying out such a very clear framework that sort of like applies to everything. And I love its circularness.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. Does everybody understand this sutta and that this is the path to resolving wrong views of self in relation to the world?
Yes.
Does everybody see
Yes.
that? Because that's the point. That's why we do it. Again, it's not for anything external to us, and it doesn't require anything external. It's just this. So.
well, it helps me to navigate all this stuff that's external.
Thank you. All right. Our retreat's coming up in 1 month. If you're coming, please sign up. I hope you're all going to join us. I know you won't. You can't all, but it would be wonderful. And there's really no substitution for a retreat in developing the Dhamma, especially the way we do it. We'll finish with metta, as we always do. And these are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. So take a moment to become mindful of your breath in your body. And these are the Buddha's words. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace. See you, Jane. See you, Helen.
See you, John. Have a good week.
You too.